So, I have not made a Guild Wars 2 video in a very long time. The last time I made a Guild Wars 2 video was way back in 2020 when I started playing again after a hiatus, due to some, actually, quite a bit of stuff that wasn't Guild Wars 2's fault. Um, but a little bit was an issue in Guild Wars 2, but I didn't really explain much about what were the quote-unquote issues that I have with Guild Wars 2. Um, they're probably not the same issues that a lot of other people have with it. For instance, it is a major pet peeve of mine that there are so many items in the game that the only way to get rid of them is to destroy them. You go through all this effort in an achievement to get an item, say for a legendary collection, and then you have to delete it. And to me, deleting items is not fun. It's not quality gameplay. So I find that very annoying. I find it annoying that there are quite a many items in this game where there's, you know, thousands upon thousands of them posted at minimum price because they're so useless. And I don't understand why they don't make some more recipes or uses for those items so that it basically, effectively, they aren't vendor trash anymore. But things like that don't really bother most people, it doesn't seem like. Um, Things that bother other people don't bother me at all. Um, so it's interesting. But I said at the time, I actually rewatched it because it was the last video I made about Guild Wars 2, that Guild Wars 2 is like the most casual game I had ever played. I do take that back currently. Having played Black Desert Online, that is the most casual friendly game I have ever played. Guild Wars 2 is much more uh, effort requiring for something other than just a grind than BDO is. I still play BDO, but at the same time, it's definitely a background game. I would say the majority of the day, my hours in BDO are just AFK fishing. I do go play it, actually, like, hands-on play it each day, some, but, the entire game is designed around the fact that you don't have to hands-on play Black Desert Online all the time. So yeah, that's definitely the most casual friendly game I've ever played. But Guild Wars 2 is still decently casual friendly. I would say it's not been as casual for me lately. Basically, with all the positive sentiment in my household in specific between you know all of our family, the announcement of the expansion and details about the expansion and all that whatnot really went over big for our family, so we're very excited and ready for that, like very ready for that. So we've been playing a lot more actively and not just casually, necessarily, in the background, casual game or whatever. The other thing that's contributed to that quite a bit is World of Warcraft is just in a terrible state, partially because the game itself has been super unenjoyable to play. They basically just, like, ruined the game. And secondly, the company itself has been an absolute, like, shit show. Like, they're really not doing themselves any favors with almost every choice that they make. And it's been a while. I mean, it's September 1st. It's a nice morning, all that kind of jazz. I actually had enough quiet in the house that I could record. And it's like,
The treasure hunt has begun.
I just
Pirate coins have
did.
been dropped round the cliffs.
I've never really made, like,
Use any skills you've got to
World of
find
Warcraft
them.
videos.
The more
I've
loot
always
you find
made,
with your friends,
you know,
the bigger the rewards for
in the
all of
past
them.
videos for
Good
other
luck,
games than
mateys.
World of Warcraft for the most part. And it's because WoW has never really been the best. Even when I started playing it again, it wasn't because I actually wanted to start playing it again so
You're
much
all doing
as
great. Scoop up as many coins as you can before
it
time
was
runs
just
out.
nostalgia. And then once I started, my spouse got into it and she wanted me to keep playing and stuff. I was already ready to quit and go back to ESO, but instead we ended up starting a guild.
Great
What?
work, mateys.
Anyway,
We've cleared
the
the
guild's
first
still there,
battle.
but we've passed off
Make
the
it
leadership.
better.
I personally did that much sooner than my spouse. I just don't find any enjoyment in World of Warcraft. And I don't want to support money being gained by Activision Blizzard. Like, they don't deserve it. Meanwhile, we had started playing BDO, I was still playing ESO, and then, obviously, still locking into Guild Wars 2 when Guild Wars 2 came out with Woot Woot. Look at all the dragons. Guild Wars 2 came out with, here's some more details about this expansion that we announced forever ago. And we actually are very excited. Fishing is one of the things that my spouse personally has wanted in the game since forever. And, you know, they're adding fishing. And then, you know, we are very excited about some of the elite specializations. Our girlfriend's major into mesmers, always has been, and one of the things she's always wanted was a pure DPS, like, just spec for mesmer, like, that was just exactly what Virtuoso is. So she's very excited. I'm sort of half-heartedly trying to get these bundles, sorry. I'm not try-harding this at all because I'm recording and I'm not going to be able to do both. Try-harding. But basically, like, they're adding skiffs, they're adding a siege turtle, and what I'm wondering with that is if they're practicing for trying. I've seen a ton of MMOs attempt to do ship battles, but I have not seen it be very successful in most MMOs, RPGs. Ships and ocean combat and stuff is just something that a lot of games keep trying and then failing at, in my opinion. So it's really exciting to me that they're practicing with skiffs, and then with siege turtles, they might be practicing having more than one person on a thing that can possibly shoot, or do some sort of something like that, which means that maybe in the future, there would be content with boats and ship battles, and they're actually putting out these contents as separate things to test different features of it, to essentially try to do better. That would not surprise me at all. They haven't announced anything like that, but it wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, look at what they did with mounts. And, I mean, look at their underwater combat compared to most games. Now, people complain about the underwater combat, but compared to most MMORPGs, the underwater combat in this game is, like, completely different and exciting. Mounts in this game, it's considered to be widely by a lot of people to be the best done mounts in any MMORPG. If not the best, then definitely up there for the people who don't think it's the best. Because each mount has its own unique, like, interactive abilities and stuff, and it makes it, like, exciting to ride your mount instead of it just being something that carries you around and looks cool. And that's an important thing to remember because they have in the past shown ingenuity. You know, they took the event, quote-unquote, capability system, and they did so much more with it. Like, you look at the way that events happen in this game, and they're so seamless with the worlds, and they lead you gently toward distraction, and there's, like, miniature storylines in them, and they build up on each other, and some events lead to bigger events and bosses and all this stuff. And then you look at other games that have event systems, like the original Rifts in Rift, not that anyone plays that game anymore, or, you know, like even, in World of Warcraft, they did freaking, like, basically quests that are repeatable that spawn somewhere random on the map each day, and you go to that spot and do the same exact quest over and over, and that's it. Or, you know, fates even, in Final Fantasy XIV. You grind fates for, you know, levels on your classes, but the fates are just pretty much the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And it's not that the events aren't the same events, it's that different events can spawn depending on how you interact and what you do to a certain degree. Or other things can happen from the events. You can unlock cities, or you can unlock villages, you can unlock like different types of merchants and interactable places, and some events even unlock jumping puzzles. Like, it's not just world bosses or kill crap, or escort crap. I guess that one's done a lot too. They find ingenuity is a big thing in this game. They find ways to make things better. Even the combat is a mix between tab and action, and it's done very well. As someone who's played plenty of tab target MMOs and action MMOs, this is the best hybrid, in my opinion, period, for combat. It's kind of interesting to me because if they are putting boats in the game with these skiffs, and then they're putting a siege turtle in the game, and they've been doing, you know, mounts for a while now that have an extra ability and stuff, it would not surprise me at all that they're trying to figure out a system for, like, boats to be, like, open combat ships and stuff. Like, can you imagine that instead of just the pirates and Lion's Arch being insignificant and, yay, they created a city for themselves, woohoo, they're a, you know, actual society now, that, you know, you actually end up having big giant maps where being a pirate or an Aetherblade or a Canthan, whatever, is actually a possibility. I don't know that they're actually doing this, but to me it seems very likely with the way that stuff's being handled. Like, putting skiffs and siege turtles together would create fireable cannons on ships. Just saying. Anyway, the big thing is, no matter what, we're going to enjoy the expansion for Guild Wars 2. It's also nice that they're updating the game. It's a pity it's not to 12, but at least to DirectX 11. It should help with, you know, basically, this game is so poorly optimized, like, at this point, because of how old everything is. It's really, sad. I'm hoping that they update textures at some point, too, because that would really help the game's age. I'm hoping that that's part of what they're planning on doing, is updating textures and not just optimization, but just optimization by itself would intensely improve gameplay. Like, I'm getting a little bit of lag, even though I have great internet and my computer is just fine. Like, should be able to handle this ×3, just because of there being a lot of people around, and it's not optimized for that, even though the entire game is designed around that. It's supposed to be like lots of people on the maps interacting with things and often with each other. So if the game's not optimized for lots of people, but lots of people are encouraged to be on each map, then it's like frustrating, and I get that. I have noticed that a lot of people have been coming back to Guild Wars 2. I don't know if it's for the same reasons, but I suspect so. Between the excitement of an expansion coming, you know, in February, and then the excitement of, yay, something to play that isn't World of Warcraft, because WoW sucks right now. I feel like lots of people are looking to other games, and Final Fantasy XIV has done really well, and I don't begrudge them that at all. I actually really liked that game. Ha! Actually got some code. But it's so expensive. It's ridiculously, prohibitively for us, expensive. But we're poor, so what else? For people who aren't poor and can play Final Fantasy XIV, grats. But there are other poor people in the world who don't want to spend an arm and a leg on Final Fantasy XIV, and they've been looking to other games, and I've noticed the numbers in BDO went up for a little bit, and then they kind of tapered. But they also don't have, like, some big giant announcement going on. I mean, they've been making improvements and adding patches, like, every week, but at the same time, they always do that. Guild Wars 2 is pretty good at having consistent patches as well, but maybe not every week. They do more like every 2 weeks, every a minimum month. But the thing is in games like Final Fantasy XIV and in especially World of Warcraft, patches are like months between, like really far apart. At least in Final Fantasy XIV, they add like events and, you know, mini festivals and stuff. But there's content droughts in both games. And in Guild Wars 2 and in BDO, content drought isn't really the issue. It's more of the, you know, grind in these games. But these games are also completely yours once you purchase them. You don't have to keep buying stuff over and over again unless you just want something from the gem store, or in BDO you want something from, you know, the store in their game. In reality, you don't have to buy any of that stuff, and you can use in-game currencies to get any of that stuff. Well, in BDO, not any of that stuff, but in Guild Wars 2, the only thing you have to actually fully can't earn enough gold to get it kind of a thing for at all is buying the expansions, or the game, the first place expansions. The base game is completely free to play. It's 100%, you can just play it. So, but the big thing for me is I see people coming to this because there's some people who also just prefer the different playstyle than Final Fantasy XIV. To me, Final Fantasy XIV is an endless grind of going into stuff with a group. You're either going into a trial, or you're going into a fate, or you're going into a dungeon, or whatever it is. You're just grinding, looking for group systems, like, constantly. And it's just a different sort of grind, or else you're standing AFK RPing. Like, those are the things that you're doing there. In Guild Wars 2, it's an endless grind, but the grind ends with things that are like a legendary that you could have done yourself, completely by yourself, without having to have help from anyone, or you can do it in groups and stuff, and there's legendaries you can get, and you basically need to be in groups. You know, like, it's more flexible on the choice of how you're playing it. In Final Fantasy XIV, most of the solo content is just story instances, which Guild Wars 2 has, but the story instances, you know, as much as they can be done solo or in a group, it's, like, not the primary goal of the game, and I feel like Final Fantasy XIV really brings the RPG out in MMORPG, and Guild Wars 2 is more of the MMO, and it has the RPG. I felt like WoW lately doesn't really do well at either. It's mediocrity at both. So it's no surprise that people are leaving it by the droves. It's just interesting to me to watch what games people are gravitating toward. Interestingly, a lot of people are feeling super nostalgic and wishing things would go back the way they were, and they're playing RuneScape a lot, which I find very funny, because, like, RuneScape is somehow still so active, and I can't personally handle the graphics in that game. It's just too old and outdated for me personally. And I know a lot of people would say that about Guild Wars 2, that the graphics are too outdated, that they feel old. And to a certain degree I understand that, because every once in a while I look at something and I'm like, yeah, that looks outdated. I'm not gonna lie. But I do feel like they've held up the graphics in this game have held up over time quite well. Like, the game's almost a decade old, and it still looks pretty good in my opinion. Again, if part of the DirectX 11 upgrade is updating textures, this game's gonna do, like, incredible. But I do not know for sure that that's part of it. I just know there's tons of people playing. Seas of people playing on every map. I can't even go to maps like, I don't know, Timberline Falls or Desert Highlands or, places that are not always the most populated, however you want to say that, desolation, I don't know. Places where people have moved on, and at the same time, they really haven't moved on because it's, like, full. All of the maps are full of people, there's stuff to do, everybody's interacting, and to me, this game has always been the kind of game where you have so much flexibility, and I feel like there's so much to do and so much flexibility that people, when they come play this game, they end up playing it for quite a while. I've also seen a lot of people who used to play the game way back, like, say, 7 years ago. They played it at launch, whatever it was, and then they quit. And they're coming back, and they're like, oh, wow, this is, like, insane. I can't believe I ever quit this game. Which is also interesting to me. I personally am glad that I came back to it back in 2020. I'm glad I'm still playing it in 2021. I feel like it has so much to offer. Like, here I've been playing it this whole time, and there's still so much I haven't done that it's, like, crazy. Like, obviously I got my sky scale, and did some stuff like that. They're doing the Return to events for the Living World seasons, and I actually am working on Vision at the same time. So I'm getting a bunch of my Vision stuff while actually doing the achievements toward the legendary necklace. So that's really nice. Like,
Fury is mine.
I feel like it's hard to get bored in this game. Even when I'm, like, running around gathering and getting materials, or maybe, like 2 days ago, I was doing a bauble farm in Verdant Brink, and you're just hunting, freaking arrowheads, veterans again and again and again and again. It's still entertaining. The squad leader was thankfully pretty funny, and I don't really get bored. Sometimes in BDO, I get bored. Like, right now, I'm killing centaurs on my season character, and I can only kill about 300, and then I'm like, okay, I'm bored. And, um, you know, it's funny, I'm making slow progress on my season character, but I do reach a cap of, like, okay, I'm not having fun anymore, I'm gonna log off. On ESO, I go get my event tickets, check my trading guilds, and then I'm kind of like, I'm bored. And I come back and I play Guild Wars 2. So it's interesting because I started playing Guild Wars 2 to be the background game when I didn't feel like playing anything else, and instead it's become the foreground game that I play, and everything else kind of is secondary to it. And I suppose Guild Wars 2 has always been a little bit that way for me. It's the game I always come back to. Like, for a lot of people, that's games like World of Warcraft. For me, it's Guild Wars 2. But, the expansion looks exciting, looks fun. It doesn't look quite as groundbreaking, possibly, if they don't do the whole ship thing, as the previous expansions were, but in actuality, it doesn't need to be groundbreaking. Like, Guild Wars 2, ArenaNet sort of set a precedent that, oh, our expansions, like, totally, drastically, intensely change, everything for the better, and it doesn't actually need to do that. It just needs to be a good expansion. And I mean, it's set in freaking Cantha. We're probably gonna finally meet the water dragon that we've not ever met before, and it's adding some quality of life changes and increasing the engine and stuff for it. Like, To me, that's a good expansion all by itself. Even without the elite specializations, the fishing, the skiffing boats, the, you know, stuff that they're adding besides that, the siege turtle, all this stuff, that's all like fluff in comparison to they just need some fun big maps, some decent storyline, upgrading the optimization of the game, and it to be decent. Like, that's really all they need to do for me to get my money's worth out of it, and instead I'm getting, like, all these extra cherries on top. Um, I feel like they're doing things in a very right and good way. And I like that with this expansion, they went back to how they originally did the game, um, like PR and marketing and all of that. They put things in little bits. They were like, here's a little taste of what's to come. Here's another little taste of what's to come. And they used to do that when the game was coming out, and I really like the way that they're doing this, where they're doing like, oh, can you guess what this elite specialization is? Oh, here's a little teaser that we hid in this. Oh, did you figure it out? You know, that's fun. That's entertaining. And basically, if you're watching this and you haven't tried Guild Wars 2 lately, or you haven't played it in a while, or whatever it is, maybe give it another chance, because lots of people are and not regretting it, and that's awesome. Um, in 2021, I would say this game has held up insanely well and is still flat out one of the best expansions out there, um, coming forward on the horizon, and one of the best games out there, like, period. Um, maybe you are still hyped about the Final Fantasy XIV expansion in November. That's fine. This expansion's in February, so you have time to do your storyline, do your content, get to end game, and be bored. And then you can just come play this expansion instead. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of MMORPG players, that's really what we do anymore. um, but there's tons to do and tons going on, and I I was very mixed emotion when I came back to playing this game. I was very, very full of, like, angst and, you know, memories and regret and stuff, and it's been so therapeutic and everything, even as World of Warcraft and Blizzard have been screwing everything up, and we had to, stop with the guild and WoW, which the 2-year anniversary is coming up, and that's when Peach is officially stepping down, my spouse. But like, it was 2 years of us really trying to do good things for other players, and I feel like we made a really solid, good guild and all of that. But it's just been really sad watching a game that brought so many good memories back in the day, World of Warcraft, just dying. And I don't want to watch something that I had good feelings about die. I did that with the Guild and Guild Wars 2, and with that LGBT plus community that I had helped with. I watched it get worse and worse and more toxic, and start falling apart, and I don't want to do that again. I don't want to watch a whole game do that. Watching something slowly shrivel away and everything is not something I'm interested in. I'd much rather just play where I'm having fun, and it just happens to be that where I'm having fun also there's, like, life and growth and, good things happening. New build. Speaking of those constant patches. Anyway, that's basically what I had to say about that. I'm, I mean, there's just too much to enjoy in this game to be sad. Um, so, I just wanted to, I guess, update things. I don't know that I'd start making guides again. Honestly, I went back and watched one of my old guides, and for the Return to event. Um, oh my gosh, they're so outdated, and like even the recording quality of them and stuff is so old. Like because the guides are so old. I don't know if I should remake guides. I mean, honestly, there's so many guides out there. I don't know that anyone even looks at mine. If I made new ones, I don't know how many people would find that interesting or not. And again, the big problem with recording for me is, and always has been ever since I started having a family, that there's almost always noise in the house. So I don't know if I could be consistent about it either. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I did have fun doing that, and it would be entertaining. But for now, I'm just playing, and happy to be playing. And happy to be playing something that makes me happy to play. Anywho, have a good one.